Hey, what's up guys? Today we're going to talk about my reread of The Hunger Games. I reread the entire series over the last few weeks with a group of friends. It was super fun. I loved rereading and revisiting the series, and I'm going to talk about all three books today. I'm not going to go through every single plot point. I basically just wrote down things that really caught my attention and also some different themes that I picked up on. I don't want to go through it plot by plot. So hopefully you enjoy. If you do enjoy this video, please please subscribe, and I hope you, like I said, enjoy.
3, 2, 1.
Right away, I like the commentary about how the Capsule has even the poor people divided. So for example, Gale dislikes Madge because he views her as being more privileged than he is, which she is, but in the eyes of the Capsule, they're both nothing. And I think this is really interesting because it comes back a lot in Catching Fire and Mockingjay with the whole message of remember who the enemy is, and it's set up really well in this very first chapter. So I forgot how fast we get right into the reaping. Prem's name is called at the end of chapter 1, and I love Katniss volunteering. It is so emotional and it hits you so hard, even though you know it's coming because, like I said, it's a reread for me. It's just so impactful every single time.
I volunteer as tribute!
I also really like all the emphasis they put on the fact that she's a survivor and that she was responsible for her family after her father died in the mines, and it just really builds up her character and is really important to her character growth. Something I wish was explored more is Haymitch's alcoholism. So it's kind of played for laughs in the first book, and then it's explored more in the second and third, and in the third we find out about his family, but it's never something that we really scrape past the surface of. And I think it would have been really good if Suzanne Collins demonstrated the dangers of alcoholism, because Haymitch is played for laughs a lot of the time, and the alcoholism is mentioned regularly but in a very sugar-coated way. Once we get into the Capsule, my biggest thought was just that it's so evil that Rue is there. The fact that these huge career boys from District 1, District 2 are fighting against this tiny 12-year-old little girl is so just evil, and it really just shows how the Capsule just does not even care about the human lives of those in the districts, and they basically don't even view them as human, in my opinion.
Just sitting here. Finish you right now, kid, huh?
I do like that Katniss displays some vulnerability just before the interviews. It's very realistic because it's one of the few times we really see her get her guard down, and it's because she has to speak in public and try and make people like her, which, as we know, is one of her biggest weaknesses. Is she doesn't even want people to like her, and it comes back to her survival thing. She just wants to survive and look after her family. She doesn't really care about making friends, and that is one of her downfalls throughout the series, is that she doesn't trust people enough. The standout parts of the games to me was her hallucinations after she got stung by the Tracker Jackers and has their venom in her body. It's so disturbing, the imagery that is used in her hallucinations, and I was reading it and I was like, I don't remember these being so graphic. There was stuff about bugs crawling under her skin and just all this graphic imagery that I did not remember, and it was really gross, but it's one of the standout points of the games in my opinion, is that whole scene there, because it was just so I don't even know, disturbing, basically, just really disturbing. When Katniss joins up with Rue, I almost wanted to just stop reading because honestly, I knew it was coming, and it's so sad when it does happen. It's definitely one of the defining moments of the series. Like I said, the Tracker Jacker stuff is kind of a defining moment of those games. But for me, Katniss's relationship with Rue and then Rue's death is basically the start of the rebellion. I would say even before they eat the berries, Rue's death is the defining start of the rebellion. We have the announcement about the fact that 2 winners will be allowed if they're from the same district. I honestly think that Katniss would have doubted this more. We show that she's not very trusting. That's one of her main points, as I just said. She doesn't trust anyone, and I think that she should have had a little thought in the back of her head, this isn't true, but she doesn't really hesitate that much about it. When Katniss and Peeta get together and Katniss goes back and forth on whether or not her feelings for Peeta are fake in her head, it's a little annoying to read because because you're in her head, you know that she's more on the faking side, and you know that she's doing it for survival because, like I've said, she's a survivor. She just wants to get out to save her family. It's a little annoying to read, and I honestly feel like Peeta slows her down a lot in the games. If she had not had to look after him so much, she could have won easily, I think, personally. When the climax of the games happens, I honestly wish that Katniss had shot Cato faster. He was being mauled alive, and I don't understand why she let it go on for so long, because in the movie, it happens pretty quickly. She, like, shoots him to put him out of his misery. But in the book, it goes on for hours and hours and hours, and we hear about Katniss and Peeta lying on top of the cornucopia, like, just listening to him being mauled alive, and I don't understand why she let it go on for so long, because she does shoot him in the end, and I'm like, what took her so long? That's just a little thing where I was like, I really wish that had been changed, because it really is horrible. Like, Cato is a bad character, as in like a bad guy, not a bad character, like a bad guy, but it's just a product of his upbringing, and like, he's in the games, he has to kill people just the same as she does. So I don't think he deserved that horrible a death.
I can still do that.
Love the suicide pact. When that happens, it's just so perfect. It's like almost like the end of the series. Like, if that had happened, obviously it wouldn't, but it would be like so iconic. But obviously they intervened at the last second and like stopped them killing themselves. But I just thought that scene was just like, I love it. I love the suicide pact.
Stop!
End interview is very, very Big Brother, like the television show. It really hammers in that Katniss has viewed this Hunger Games as a traumatic, like life-altering, horrific experience, which it definitely is. Whereas the audience in the Capsule have just seen it as like, oh, another year of reality television. And it just shows the complete differences between the districts and the Capsule, and just how different the experiences are of the people in the two different sections.
We saved each other.
At the very end, I don't like that Peeta gets really huffy about Katniss, like basically admitting that she faked being in love with him in the games, because he should have known that she would do anything to survive. Like, as I've said multiple times, that is her main character point, is she will do anything to survive. And what does he expect? You know what I mean? Like, they even discussed before they go into the games that he has basically given her a way to look more likeable to the audience. So I don't understand why he's so surprised when she admits that it was not totally real.
Remember who the real enemy is.
Now we're on to Catching Fire, which is my favourite of the series still. I thought maybe that might change a little bit during this reread, but it definitely is still my number one. So the whole quarter quail thing is such good forward planning by Suzanne Collins. Like, honestly, her mind is like, because the fact that she made the last games the 74th, so this could be the 75th, it just like fits so perfectly. And obviously she planned it out from the start, but it was just like such perfect like forward thinking. When Haymitch tells Katniss that she is going to have to spend the rest of her life pretending to love Peeta, it is so infuriating, because it just shows how trapped that she is by the Capsule, and her entire life is ruled by them. Like, she thought eventually after leaving the games that would be it, like she survived the games, she can get on with her life, and then it like comes crashing down, and they're like, no, this is your life from now on. The games are going to be your life forever, because they always have to be mentors, they always have to come back every single year, and it's so horrific to just imagine that being your life forever.
This trip doesn't end when you get back home. You never get off this train.
When they go on the victory tour, we get that scene in District 11 with the old man whistling, and I personally think that the Peacekeeper shooting him is way more of a way to start an uprising than just letting them whistle and get on with it. The fact that they pull him on a stage, or I don't know if they do it in the book, but they shoot him anyway in front of everyone, that is going to start a riot. See if they just let all the citizens of District 11 like do the whistle, and then Katniss and Peeta had left. I think it would have been fine, but like, in my opinion, the Peacekeepers caused that.
Leave him alone! Leave him alone! No! Please leave him alone!
I do like that we see Peeta and Katniss trying to work through their trauma together, because obviously the Hunger Games would be such a horrific, traumatic experience. I can't even imagine like living with that horrific event that went on there. And for example, they share a bed because she's had nightmares ever since, and he also has nightmares, I'm pretty sure. And I do like they support each other, even though they're not on the best speaking terms at this point. I do like they are willing to support each other and basically be there for each other, because no one else other than Haymitch has been through what they've been through. Speaking of Gale, when he gets whipped and he's lying there half dead, she says, "Gale is mine, I am his, anything else is unthinkable." And honestly, when she says this, I was like, how can anyone else be Team Peeta at this point? Like her and Peter are barely on speaking terms. They're just getting along, trying to do the basics, and obviously supporting each other. But Gale and her are like inseparable. But anyway, I digress.
I should be gone by now.
I'm not going anywhere.
I love the slower pace of Catching Fire, and I love the world building that we get with all of District 12 and like spending so much more time there, because it really makes you feel the ending of this book so much more. I also really like the setup for District 13 that happens, because it's not too forced. It's interesting, but it doesn't come into place straight away, so it doesn't seem too forced, and I think it's really well done. The announcement is so perfectly evil, and it's heartbreaking, and I love Katniss's reaction because it's very realistic, I think, because there is no proper reaction to finding out that you're having to go back into the games. It's basically like a fight or flight response, and she doesn't. She flies. She like flies away. But I can't imagine like that announcement. It would be horrific. Like I think that announcement is even worse than going into the games like physically. Like later on, I think that announcement after you think you're free would be like so crushing.
What does he mean?
I love in the training hall, training center, when she hangs the dummy by a noose and writes Seneca Crane on it. I think that is just like perfect Katniss behaviour. It just kills me. And I also really love the interviews. Okay, so the interview section of Catching Fire is my favourite section out of all three books. You have Katniss turning into the Mockingjay. You have Peeta saying she's pregnant. You have all the Capsule citizens like going mad about it, calling for the games to be cancelled. Then you have all the tributes standing there like holding hands, and I think the imagery there is just like amazing, and I just really love that entire section. It's just like blow after blow after blow, like she's pregnant, this, blah blah blah. Like I just love that whole section, and I think it's really well done in the movies as well. I love in the movie when Joanna just starts swearing, because I feel like no one's ever swore in the Hunger Games movies up until this point, and then she's just going beep 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 beep. And I really love it.
But you know what? That! I everybody that had anything to do with.
They come in and kill, or they don't kill him straight away, but they come in and beat up Cinna right at the exact right moment, in my opinion. It is so perfectly, evilly executed. It's just like so dramatic, and it just, again, knocks Katniss like off her feet, like completely disorientates her going into the arena, and I thought it was like another really well done sequence. Once they're in the games, the fog really freaks me out. It's basically like an invisible enemy, and you can't fight it like against it, and you just have to run and run and run. And then Mag's death is like really noble, I think, here. The way that she just kisses Finnick on the cheek, just runs to her death so that he can save Peeta, is like really amazing, actually. And I think she is a really strong character, obviously not physically, but just like mentally. I think Mags is really, she's one of the standout characters of Catch a Fire.
Max? Max?
I really love the clock layout of the arena. It's very different, and it's an interesting little puzzle for them to try and work out. I don't think I could ever in my life work that out just from like seeing it and being there. The fact that Katniss managed to work it out is really impressive to me. Again, also for me not understanding things. Okay, so when they try and follow BT's plans, I feel so dumb, and I think that's kind of the point. But I honestly don't believe that Katniss, after all that confusion and people getting like knocked out, Katniss gets like hit in the head, so she has a head injury, and there's all this confusion going on and shouting and everything. I don't think she would have worked out that she was supposed to shoot the force field. And like she does it, and I'm glad she does it, but I don't think realistically she would have ever worked that out. But anyway, I'm glad it happens. I love the whole sequence of the arena just exploding. I think it's really cool. And then we have the very end, and this is one of my favourite book endings of all time. We have Gale turn to Katniss and saying there is no District 12. I think it's just perfect. And I remember the first time I read this, reading that page and thinking, oh my god, and just going straight onto Mockingjay. Like the second I was done, I was like straight onto Mockingjay, because it's just one of the most perfect like endings to a book. Starting off with Katniss in the ruins of District 12 just shows how serious things are getting from now on, and just how serious this book is going to be. I can't imagine 800 people escaping. That seems really high to me. But you know what? The more survivors, the better, obviously. But when Gale says that 800 people survived, I was like, that's quite a decent amount. The strict scheduling and the daily tattoos and the sameness of life in District 13 sounds horrible to me. And when we find out that Katniss's prep team has been kept prisoner in District 13, it really shows you just how similar District 13 is to the Capsule in many ways. And there's a lot of parallels between the authority of Snow and the authority of Coin, which really comes into play later on. But this is the first we kind of see that District 13 is not this super happy place, and Coin is not the best leader for these people.
Will become an alliance to be reckoned with.
There's also a lot of parallels to the game with her prep team having to, like, you know, make her all beautiful, like for the propose, I think, is that what it's called? Yeah. And then like Hamish mentoring her and telling her what to do, and there's just a lot of parallels here again with, like, she is not fully out of the games. She is still a pawn in maybe not the Hunger Games, but a pawn in the games of the war. Something I noted is that Katniss is actually kind of unlikable in this book. She doesn't really get on with people that well ever, but in this book it's very, very clear that she's not a likeable person, and I think that's actually kind of realistic. When you think about the fact that she's gone through so much trauma twice, she's had Peeta snatched away from her, he's like off in the Capsule, God knows what's happened to him, and again, like I said, she's just another pawn in another bigger games, this time an actual war. It just seems like you would never, like, that would not be anyone into a likeable person. Like, you really can't blame her for just wanting to shut everyone out.
With shocks and beatings and...
After Peeta warns them about the bombs when they're in the underground, well, they're obviously underground, but really, really underground bunkers, we get some really nice moments between Katniss and Prem, which I really liked, because obviously we know that Katniss loves Prem. The whole series is because Katniss loves Prem and volunteered for her, but we actually don't get that much interaction between them normally. So I really like that we got this here, because it really sets up like some more emotions, because Prem at this point is very grown from the little girl from the first book, and it just shows that, you know, Katniss still wants to protect her and do the best for her with everything she does.
They're gonna kill everyone, and in District 13 you'll be dead by morning!
The fact that Finnick was essentially a sex slave and was abused in this way by the Capsule is not something I see talked about very much, and it's such a dark topic for a YA book, and obviously the Hunger Games in general deals with a lot of dark topics, but this is not something I really see talked about ever, and I think it's really, really dark for the Hunger Games books still, like this whole concept of basically sex slavery, and it's not something I ever see really talked about. It's just another example of how the Capsule controls the tributes, like, forever. For the rest of their lives, they're in the control of the Capsule.
Then how do people pay for the pleasure of your company?
With secrets.
Peeta returns and he is hijacked, and he believes that Katniss is the enemy, but I don't really know how I feel about this. It obviously adds a lot of conflict to the book, and it's an interesting source of conflict, but I think it takes away a lot of what makes Peeta Peeta, and for that reason I'm not sure how much I really love it. We find out that Gale has been designing weapons, and they are so inhumane, and this is one of the points where I started to kind of dislike Gale. I feel like he's really lost a lot of his humanity, and we obviously know what happens later because of his bombs, so I just really kind of started to dislike him at this point, because it really shows that he has changed more than anyone, I think, because of this war. Again, in District 2, Gale's bloodlust and like desire for violence and for like no survivors of the people in the nut, which, as Katniss argues, a lot of them are forced to be there. They're just workers from District 2. It's really unsettling, and it shows that he's just completely consumed with the war, and it really made me dislike him, to be honest. I appreciate, though, that it really contrasts with Katniss still having a lot of humanity, which I think is important to showcase, because you would expect Katniss, after having to be in the games twice and kill so many people, to be the one who has lost her kind of sense for human life. But I like that Gale kind of shows that Katniss has not lost that.
Evacuees. It's a luxury we weren't given when they firebomb 12.
There's got to be a better way.
When they're in the Capsule, Coin sending Peeta in is so frustrating, and I think in real life this would never ever happen. Like, I don't think you could ever justify this happening in real life, but it does, so we'll get on with it. once Katniss takes her squad out on their own like fictional mission, I have like a small issue with this part of the book. There's just too many characters. I don't know who half of them even are, because there's a squad who aren't really fully formed. They don't have their own real personalities. And then we have like Gale and Finnick, who barely speak a word the whole entire time they're underground. They don't really say that much. And for this reason, I think Finnick's death personally doesn't really get to me, because he's hardly said a word for the last like, I don't know how many chapters. And you've kind of almost forgotten that he's there. So when Katniss looks down and sees that Finnick is being killed, it's sad, but it doesn't really hit the same because they haven't even really interacted for a while. And I don't know, I just feel like this section, there's far too many characters, and I feel like she'd done it because she wants to show, again, parallels to the games, like the tributes are being taken down one by one, but I just think I just think there's too many characters.
To be the on-screen faces of the invasion, the Star Squad.
In Tigress's shop, we get a scene of Gale and Peeta talking about who Katniss will choose, okay, and they think she's asleep. And this, I swear to God, this same scene happens in Eclipse with Bella, Jacob and Edward in the tent, but I'm just going to move on. That's all I'm saying. It was really similar. I was reading that, I was like, I've read this before. After they leave the shop, the killings and the violence is so extreme and so sad. I hate war. I hate the concept of war. I hate it so much. And this whole section is just so horrible because the Capsule are just killing everyone. Like, the pods are so disgusting and like scary. Like, the pods the Capsule come up with are crazy, and they're just killing all these innocent like civilians. And then we get Prem's death. I realised at this point that the series had basically gone full circle. It starts with Katniss seeing Prem and her little ducktail shirt, and the war ends with Katniss seeing Prem in her little ducktail shirt. The entire series had basically went full circle. Well, from Katniss volunteering to save Prem to Prem dying in front of Katniss. And it is definitely one of the sadder points. I don't think it's as sad as Rue's death, but it's definitely like one of the top 3 deaths of the series. I noticed at this point, okay, that Susan Collins' writing kind of becomes, if I was with much more imagery, and it becomes almost lyrical after Prem's death, and throughout Katniss's time in the mansion, there's a lot more imagery used, and I think it's because she's trying to show that Katniss doesn't have a proper grip on reality anymore. And I really liked it. It shows it, because I think one of the things Susan Collins gets slated for the most is that her writing isn't super great. Like, the storylines, the characters are great, the actual writing itself isn't. And I think that she, in this section, shows that she can do that, but she probably just chooses not to. And, you know, I respect that. Coin suggesting another Hunger Games is madness, and it just shows exactly what I've said from the start of the section of the video, that District 12 or District 13 and the Capsule are not that different. Coin and Snow are not that different, and I am glad that Katniss killed her. Like, it really makes sense to me. I remember the first time I read it, when she kills Coin, kind of being taken aback, but on this reread, because I was like, I knew it was happening, and I picked up on all the little subtle, well, they're not even that subtle, but all the little things about how the 13 and Capsule are like kind of the same. It really made a lot of sense to me this time. In the end, I am glad that Katniss and Peeta in the epilogue kind of make peace and like find peace, because Katniss, and they've both just gone through so much. So I like that before the epilogue, in the very last chapter, we kind of see Katniss going through like a deep dark depression, because this is so realistic, and I honestly do think that she in real life would probably kill herself, which is dark, but it's true. Like, I can't even imagine like trying to recover from all that death and trauma, and just all the events of all 3 books all happening to you alone as one person is just like unimaginable. And the fact that she can recover from that, and so can Peeta, is like incredible. And that is the end of the Hunger Games trilogy. Like I said at the start, I really enjoyed rereading the series. There was a lot of stuff I'd forgot, like for example in Mockingjay, I completely forgot all about the section in District 2. So when I was rereading that, I was like, this is like Mandela effect, like, I don't remember any of this. But overall, I love the whole series. I give them all 5 stars. I really, really liked Mockingjay, and over the years, I've always heard people say, oh, Mockingjay's not that good, and I've always kind of had this opinion in my head as well. I'm like, oh, Mockingjay wasn't that good. But rereading it and like forming my own opinion again, I realised that I like it just as much as all the others. I definitely think a lot of people dislike it because there is not the actual physical games themselves, but like I've talked about, there definitely is still like a Hunger Games going on. It's just not these official 76 Hunger Games. But overall, really, really enjoyed the series. So if you like this video, please like, subscribe, let me know all your thoughts down below. I know you have thoughts on Hunger Games, and I cannot wait for the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. 14 days. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next one.